If you're going to have success as a business owner, you need to have some type of community. Now, I'm going to talk about two different types of community on this episode, but you need some type of community because otherwise it can just really get like really hard and like really lonely. Not to mention, if you work from home, you have one of those private offices, kind of like what I do here, it is so lonely. And so today we're going to talk about it. Welcome back to another episode of the Keenya Kelly podcast. I am so glad that you are here with me today. I'm glad you are listening on the podcast players, but also watching me on our YouTube channel. And so if you're on YouTube, well, what's up, YouTube? Make sure that you go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel. That way you're always notified every single time we have a new episode. We have a new episode on YouTube every Monday and Thursday. So make sure you come and watch. If you're listening on the podcast, hey, this comes out every single Tuesday. And so make sure that you have your notifications turned on. And then if you guys want to swap and go listen to the podcast, or you're on the podcast and want to watch on YouTube, you can always just search everywhere, the Keenya Kelly podcast. And this is how you can find everything. So today we're talking about community and why you should build a community. But I'm going to talk about this in the space of like, I need a community, right? Now, let me, my disclaimer is I always teach you guys or talk to you all about things that, I'm in the process of doing or have done. And so this is kind of where we are today. So, and again, we're talking about this from two different angles. One angle is needing community for you as it pertains to like entrepreneurs, business owners, and all that type of stuff. But the second type of community that we're talking about is people that love what it is you do and a part of your community. And not only do you help them, but they also help each other. 4 years ago, I moved from Houston, Texas to California. I moved to Redding, California. Now, prior to moving to Houston, I lived in Richmond, Virginia for 8 years. And then prior to moving to Richmond, I lived in Kentucky. So most of the people that I've always known has been in Kentucky. And then when I was starting my business, building my business in Virginia, I was there for 8 years, got married, divorced, and all the things. And you just want to leave the past in the past. What happens is when you move, right? Not just your city, but like a state, you lose a lot of friends, you lose a lot of community. And I don't think that it's always because people don't care about you. It's that it's kind of like the out of sight, out of mind type of thing, because like now you're over here and their life is still going on where it was before. And so you lose people and you lose touch with people, unfortunately, when you moved. And I've moved a few times. I love just being new environments or whatever. I like staying put, but sometimes when God asks me to go somewhere, I just go. And so I've moved a bunch of times actually. And so that means I have lost community. I've lost my friends. And so then when you move again, now you're restarting. And so for me, when I moved to California, that was the biggest move, moving from Texas all the way to California. And I didn't know anybody here, but I did because God asked me to. And so then I started living in Redding, California, for a while. And then of course, COVID hit. And so when COVID hit, a lot of us lost all types of community because we were now all just kind of locked into our little small environments. We weren't really traveling as much and whatever. And 2 years later, I moved down here to San Diego, which I absolutely love. When I was moving to San Diego, I said to myself, I want to make sure that I move into an apartment complex there's a lot of people, right? Where I can meet people and build community or whatever, which I did. And I started connecting with people, or trying to at least. But one of the things about running a business and running a virtual business is you work by yourself. I am a content creator, so I need to be in a space by myself, somebody who's not on the phone, who's not texting, not talking or whatever, because I create content and do all the things or whatever in my space. And so that limits me with the amount of people that I'm exposed to all the time. And then when I moved here, there wasn't a lot of networking events or events going on in general. So I'm definitely not able to meet more people like at all. So it has been a journey. It has been a very lonely journey, especially like the last 2 years because of COVID and then just doing all the things. Somebody had talked to me, I think it was less than a year ago, about this organization called Entrepreneurs Organization. And it also has something called EOA, an accelerator group for people. Because EO, basically you have to make $1 million a year, or you can be an EOA because you're almost at $1 million or what have you. And so a friend of mine, somebody I've met at a pool party, introduced me to EOA. And I have slowly started to kind of like develop relationships, connect with people, but it's a process and it can be very lonely. Just yesterday, my mentor from EOA connected me to a guy who owns a digital marketing agency, and it's like a $50 million agency, and he has part of his agency is TikTok. Now, that is the first time in the last years that God has had me on TikTok that I've ever been able to talk to somebody who understands what I'm doing, who understands why I'm doing, who understands where things are going. First time ever. And I was just like, oh my God, I did not know that I needed that I needed to have a conversation like that, but I did, because it's like, it's not just reassuring, but it's also like, you're just able to just have conversation with a person who just gets it. And when I think about having community as it pertains to my own needs, it's really important to have people around you who understand what you're doing. So I pay for a mastermind. It's like $20,000, a lot of money. And a lot of them are, on that journey, doing the same things that I'm doing, like building their business and all that. It's nice to have people around me who are doing it, who have the same type of struggles, but they're doing something different, but it's the same digital marketing kind of sphere. It's very reassuring to be around people like that when you just may not be, like I'm not against like my friends that have jobs. It's like, hey, it's cool. It's no big deal. But when you run a business, you're able to have different conversations. So the other day I was talking to my best friend about like how much money we spend out every single month. And she was in shock. And I said, well, just because we spend that much money doesn't mean I'm making all this crazy money. It took a minute for her to connect with like, oh, in order for you to have employees, you got to make enough money to pay these employees. And so and so there's different stresses when you're running a full business or whatever. It's the blessing, but it's more stresses, you know what I mean? And so having people around me who understand like taxes, who understand like contractors, who understand payroll, who understand like these different things that I may not understand is really good for the soul. Now, the second part of having community this is based on, let's just say like you are a digital marketer, right? You are a coach or course creator, similar to what it is that I do. It is important that you learn how to build a community of followers. I hate saying that word, but when I explain, you'll understand. It's important to build a community of followers, of people who like, they may watch you online, connect with you online, and they may buy into a program or they're just online. So they could be a student of yours, or they could be just following you. And it's important that you start developing these relationships with people online, right? Because you have a community, right? So I'll give you an example. I am headed to Newcastle, England, London, Paris, and Rome this summer, right? I'm going to be speaking on TikTok and connecting with TikTok Paris when I'm there. And for me, one of the things that I am doing is when I get over there, I want to already have people that I have met before I got there that can take me around, because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't speak Italian. I'm going to take some classes. I speak a little bit of French, but not all the things or whatever. And I've just never been there. And I want to have people that I can like connect with and do all that. But I also like, somebody invited me to speak at a conference in Oakland. And I'm like, I want to reach out and say, do I know anybody in Oakland that wants to come to this event and come support me, take some footage and all that, whatever, and gives them free access to an event and maybe able to have dinner or lunch with the person or whatever, you know what I mean? And when you start, for me, that one part, when I build that community, then I'll have people to talk to. But not only that, when you're building a digital community, what ends up happening is that like when people are talking, right? Like you've made a video or whatever, and people are talking in the chat. Now they're all talking to each other. Now they're all supporting each other, right? Or we come on live streams together, and like it's like one of my my favorites online right now is Antonio. I talk about Antonio all the time. He just turned 19 years old, and he came on my live one day and was just like, "Today's my birthday," and I was like, "Everybody, say happy birthday to Antonio." And he got all these people saying happy birthday. And then the next day he came on, and I told the group that day, I was like, "Hey, Antonio's birthday was yesterday," and it was just kind of like the supportive community, just, support Antonio for his birthday. And I don't know how he felt, but for me, it felt good to just remember him when he comes on, and to be able to ask my community to like, just say happy birthday, right? Or whatever, you know what I mean? Or just starting to understand, like learn some of my friends, their kids, you know what I mean? Or like my online people's kids or whatever. It's just like, when you build these online communities, one, you don't feel as alone, right? So one of my favorite people online right now is Emily D. Baker. She has the Law Nerd community. She covers all these big cases, like celebrity type case, or just big cases. Like right now she's covering the Alex Murdaugh murder trial, and she has this whole community. And every time I'm there with her, they're like, they're having all these conversations and saying all these things. And I'm just like, it's so fascinating to just watch them like have their own language, have an emoji, and they know what that emoji means to them. It's just something special about having that community. But also one of the special things about having that type of community is they refer other people to the community. With her, it's called Law Nerds. And so if they're in conversations with people at a bar and Emily is nowhere in their sight because she don't live there, and they're talking about this murder trial, whatever that she's covering on YouTube, her people may start talking about Law Nerds and whatever. And then they go, what is that? And then now she connects them. And then it brings other people into this community in a way that an advertisement couldn't. Because like, I'm not against paying for ads and all that type of stuff or whatever, but it's like when you have a community, the community just does something different. You see what I mean? It's just something else just happens with that. Like we all follow these people online who we just like, when we see them or we hear about them, we're just like, we love them and we support them, but it's only because they started something and they kept doing a thing and they kept doing a thing. And then they kept connecting with the people that were coming to them or whatever. Does that make sense? And so having these online communities like help what it is that you're doing feel less lonely. We are in the process of really like learning how to like do this even better for my community, but it helps me feel less lonely. It helps my team feel less lonely. And then it helps those that are a part of the community feel less lonely, but also as like a family, you know what I mean? It becomes a thing. And when you are able to be in person, like you're not by yourself, you know what I mean? It's kind of like there's these conferences that happen in general that may not have anything to do with like Emily D. Baker and her Law Nerds, but she could be talking about, I think it was like BravoCon she went to, and she could say, I'm going to be at BravoCon. Is anybody going to be at BravoCon? And she may find out that like 50 people in her community are going to be at BravoCon. She says, oh, I'm going to get an extra space at the hotel. Let's have a meetup. And then now everybody can meet up, you know, at this conference or whatever. Does that make sense? And so it's like, it's these really big opportunities, not just to make money, but to just build a community that supports you, that you support, and that is just like it's just a thing. Like I know if like, as you're listening to me, you're probably thinking of some of the communities that you're connected to, or you've heard about, or you've seen, or whatever. And you can see how having a community, how it can be such a big blessing to you, to your personal life, as well as to your business. And so if you have not intentionally started like building a local community of people that are doing what you're doing, they may not be doing exactly what you're doing, but they're in business, then I would encourage you to do so. It's a process. It's scary. And it's scary for me to be texting people, connecting. It's all really scary, but I'm like, but I don't want to be sitting at home every day with my cats. I just don't want to be doing that. You know what I mean? And I don't want to build this business alone. You know, I want to have people that like big communities that I have connected with, you know, and I can support and they can support it's like a whole thing. So I just want to record this to encourage you in that, because community it's just so life-giving. Like it's just really, really life-giving to those that need community, especially in a world, in a time where everybody is on their phones and so disconnected. When you have these moments of being connected, it just feels like something we all have never experienced. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did on the podcast, please do me a favor and give us a 5-star review. If you like this on YouTube, please hit like and subscribe. And I cannot wait to hear you on the next one. If you want to listen to the podcast, you can just find the Keenya Kelly podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, anywhere you can listen to podcasts.